Welcome to the Big Life Podcast, where dreams aren't just imagined, they're built brick by brick, belief by belief. Hosted by Neil Oates Jr. and Robin Lewis, this show is your invitation to discover your amazing capabilities, invest in your growth, and unleash your potential in ways you've only dreamed of. Join Neil and Robin as they dive deep into stories, insights, and tools designed to inspire you to show up big, live intentionally, and give yourself away for the betterment of those around you. Get ready to rise to what you're truly worthy of. The Big Life starts now.
Welcome to the Big Life Podcast. Neil Oates Jr., Robin Lewis. We are going to take a journey today. We're going to go from fear to freedom. We're going to talk about breaking through our comfort zones. Robin, sir, are you ready for this one today?
Hey, Neil, it's always a pleasure getting together with you, my brother. And yes, hopefully we can add some value to our listeners.
Well, that's always our goal. Now, I want to be transparent. We're going to lead with this. As we talk about fear to freedom, breaking through comfort zones, this is one that I have a love, hate, love relationship with, because I don't think I'm going to speak for Neil. I don't like being fearful. I don't like admitting that I'm fearful, but I want to live a life of freedom and experience freedom. But it requires me to get out of that nasty place called the comfort zone. What about you, Robin?
Well, without a doubt. It sounded to me like you were going to say something specific that you don't like to be in that place. If you're just talking generally speaking in that outside of that comfort zone, yeah, it's uncomfortable outside of the comfort zone. There's no question about it.
So for me, I think that, like maybe many of our listeners and viewers, the comfort zone is a safe place, right? I mean, that's why we call it the comfort zone. We all have our comfortable jeans or our sweats or our shirt. You all know, like, this is what I call my snap shirt, just because it has like little button snaps like you do on babies' onesies, right? So this is my comfort shirt. But then I think about what happens when I have to get out of my comfort zone. And if I'm being 100% honest with you, my fear happens not when I get out of my comfort zone, but when I think about getting out of a comfort zone. So to live a big life, we know that we can't be comfortable all the time, that things are going to be required of us that maybe we are not comfortable with. And so we're going to dive into that and have some conversation about that. So where I want to start, Robin, is let's just have some conversation. Let's just dive into how staying in our comfort zone limits that personal growth that we need to live a big life. Anything that you want to share when we talk about staying in the comfort zone, how that limits that personal growth, that expansion, that bigness of the big life?
Yeah, it's funny. I heard a quote the other day that I would like to share. It was by Erwin McManus. It says, "You cannot step into a different future if you're not willing to risk becoming a different self." And so I think that has a lot to do with the question that you just asked, because the only way we're going to step into a different future is by changing. And anytime we do something for the first time, it's going to be uncomfortable. And that's not the only time that we are uncomfortable. So we can talk a little bit more about that. But as we talk about growth, come on, Neil. Right? If we're going to grow, then what it means is it means doing something differently. It means being someone different. You've heard that. What's that saying? Insanity is like doing the same things over and over, but expecting the different results.
Yes, sir.
And so I think what I have to understand and remind myself is that, yes, this is going to be a little uncomfortable. I feel a little awkward here. This doesn't feel right. I don't feel like I have it. Like, I don't feel like I know this that well. But the only way that I'm going to is to go through being uncomfortable, because it's something new.
Yeah. And so you mentioned something in that Errol McManus quote, talking about the only way that we can have a different, better future.
Yes.
Right. But many of us, we don't necessarily want a different or better future. We just want to create a better future in our head, right? Because that's why the New Year's resolutions come. That's why these promises that we make and break to ourselves, because the idea of a better future is exciting and sexy. The actual building of that better future, something bigger, something different, requires work. And then that requires us to step out on this ledge. And so you and I, we know that this still is a relatively new journey for us with the Big Life podcast.
Yes.
And this is something that while our viewers and listeners have said, hey, I'm liking this, you guys are doing pretty good. You and I, we are still sitting here like, are we going to record another episode? Well, I guess we've committed, so we've got to do this thing, right? Because no one wants to say, all right, it's not human nature to say, hey, I'm ready to change. I want to be something different. I want to put myself in that atmosphere that's going to cause me to shed who I was or who I am for who I can be. And so really quickly, the whole idea of leaving the comfort zone, a lot of times that might entail a few different areas. It might be a physical comfort zone. Some of us right now are just physically in a place where we're like, no, we're good here. We'll never leave. We're okay in the home or the neighborhood, the area. Sometimes the comfort zone might be the friends or colleagues, the peers that we have around us. And I think that's, if we aren't careful, those in the physical environment and the relationships we have, they will hold us. And all of a sudden, our circle, I believe, I don't know which pastor it was, but one pastor says our circle can become our cage, right? And if we aren't careful, we find ourselves stuck there, and then we are not moving into that big life potential that we have. Anything you have to add there, sir?
Yeah, a couple of things that I would share. One thing that comes to my mind, Neil, is you've heard the concept of this huge elephant being able to be tamed by just being connected to one little small peg in the hole in the ground, tied with a little rope or a chain. And this elephant is so strong that it could literally pull that peg out of the floor and do whatever it wants to do. But this actually happens where an elephant is tamed by having this small little peg in the floor. And how they do it is they start when they're young.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a good example of what you're talking about, where this elephant has learned that this is his comfort zone, that if this peg is in the floor and is connected to his foot, that he's not going to go anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe he had pulled on it when he was younger and wasn't able to do anything, wasn't able to go any further than what was allowed. And all of a sudden he's been conditioned to be, this is where I am, this is where I go, this is all I can do. Right? It's a great example of being in your comfort zone. And the elephant is an example, but the reality is, I think we have a lot of that in our own lives.
Now, hold on, Robin. Now, I liked it when you were talking about the elephant. I don't like when you're talking about me, right? Because, ouch, right? It's always easier for me like, man, yeah, Robin, he's over there. Robin is jacked up. Robin is in his comfort zone. Robin isn't doing wait, Neil, me? Oh, no, we're talking about Robin right now. So when you were talking about the elephant, I'm sitting there nodding. When you said we, I was like, but that's the reality, right? And here's what's wild, what you just mentioned. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much to keep us right here. And if we're being honest, we're thinking of a physical rope. Sometimes our rope might be just that little bit of fear that has been instilled by loving, kind, caring people. Hey, no, don't bet on yourself. Just get a job. No, I don't know if you should be in a relationship because relationships cause hurt and pain and you can't trust people. Wait, why are you trying to start this business, or why do you really want to put out there publicly that you're going to lose weight? What if you fail? Right? And these are those things that keep us right here, and we're never going after that thing. Now, I do want to ask you, Robin, after you make the statement that you're going to make, I want to ask you about fear. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I want to give an example, because I think it's good for our listeners to consider that this outside of this comfort zone is not only when you're doing something new, or not only when you're setting a goal or something like that. So something that I have discovered about myself is that, and this has shown up with parenting, and it has also shown up as a leader as a business owner and a leader of a group and so on, is that my tendency my comfort zone is to be supportive. I tend to be more supportive. I want to train. I want to encourage. I want to uplift. I want to, protect somebody's self-image. If you think about my child, our child, right? This is something where my wife and I would have disagreement with over how to, discipline or how to bring up our daughter. Are you tracking with me? First of all, I kind of said a lot so far. So
yes, I am.
Thank you. So what happens is I don't like confrontation. That's outside of my comfort zone. I don't like to challenge people. And here's the thing. If I don't challenge people, then I'm not helping them to grow. And so if I don't challenge my daughter, I'm not, and she's an adult now, so it's a little different. It's a little different relationship. But I'm talking about especially when. It doesn't mean it has to stop, but it's clearly a different sort of approach that we have to give now. I only get involved with that if I'm asked right now. That's kind of the way that it goes right now. But growing up, or somebody that's on my team, I want to be there to support them. But I also, if I really care about them, there are times where I need to have tough conversations. Mm-hmm. There are times where I need to challenge them, to help them to grow and to get better and to live into their potential. That's an example of where I have to get outside of my comfort zone and, have the difficult conversation.
Yeah. So real quick on that, I know that we mentioned from fear to freedom, and a lot of people, we don't like the word fear. We don't want to admit that we're afraid, right? Yeah. So even when you're talking about that you don't like confrontation, or there are things that I'm in my comfort zone with, and it's a challenge for me to step out. Many times we don't admit that we're afraid of something there, right? That fear does play a part in that, whether it's fear of rejection, fear of failure. Maybe it's the fear of not being liked. Maybe it's the fear of being critiqued or criticized. And so I want to go to the part, and I know that you are an actionable person, right? So for us, it's how do we implement, how do we apply, what steps do we take to maybe just small steps, right? Because when we talk about the elephant and that little rope and the little peg, they also say, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Not that anyone's out here eating elephants, but how do we overcome? What are some practical things that we might be able to do to overcome fear that's forcing us to stay in our comfort zones? Any ideas?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it starts with what we're doing is we're bringing it to people's awareness today. And then we're going to also get a little practical with you for our listeners. But I think the first thing that I would say is be aware. Be aware that it's a necessary part of growth. So the fear is real.
Hold on, stop, Robin. So you did not say it's an enjoyable part of growth. You said it's a necessary part of growth, right? And I want people to hear that clearly, because enjoyable and necessary are not the same thing. Because they look at Robin, they look at Neil, maybe they look at one of their mentors or coaches, and they think, well, this person just loves change and they love going out and breaking out of their comfort zones. No, we just understand that it's necessary. So go ahead and continue, sir, that the realization is that it's not enjoyable, but it is necessary to grow.
Yes, it is necessary. And I would just say, once we have that awareness, then we can stop and take a look that I don't know if there's anything or any area of our lives that we've grown where we haven't gone through the process. And so the next thing that I would say is to look at our lives. And I can't think of any area. I'm not talking about growing high, like you grow taller when you're younger, or you grow like that, right? That just kind of happens automatically. But there's very things in our life that actually there happens. Maybe my tummy grows, but that's not automatic either. So scratch that.
There we go. I was about to say that was a choice, but maybe an unconscious choice, but it was a choice. Come on, sir, I love it.
But the point is that how we, think about anything that you have done. To our listeners, think about, I started playing the game of pickleball. I didn't know what I was doing. right? It took me a little while to figure that out, and I was a little bit uncomfortable. I was a little bit embarrassed. I remember going out to the courts initially, and there were some people at the courts that they actually made me feel bad because they were like they didn't want to play with me, and they were treating me like, who is this guy? Why is he even over here, right? Talk about putting in your outside of your comfort zone, right? But the point is that I think understanding that that's a part of it and that's how we have grown in any area. I know I'm not specifically answering your question because it's still sort of putting it out there, but I think understanding that is where it starts. And then
So, Robin, real quick, I do want to just challenge our audience. If you're watching us, if you're listening to us, doubles pickleball, Neil Oates, Robin Lewis against anybody, we're taking you down. And the only reason I have the confidence in saying that because I would be on the team with Robin Lewis and I have seen him play, and he is a champion. So he can cover both sides of the court if necessary. I'm just saying. And so really quickly, you say that, and you talked about getting out of your comfort zone, and we're just going to stay pickleball because it's not I don't think it's a controversial topic, right?
yeah,
But to go from where you started to where you are now, because I'm going to say a word that's not meant to be offensive, but decent. You're decent at pickleball now.
yeah,
And what I love is that you went from being out of your comfort zone to now you're very comfortable in the pickleball arena, in the world there. But what I really love is that you are not like those people who made you feel bad and who didn't want to play with you, because I've seen you, like you played with me. The very first time I played pickleball, it was with you, right? And so that is a very big deal. And so even when we talk about overcoming our fears and moving to freedom, find someone that will hold your hand. Find someone that will bring you along. Find someone who is humble enough, someone who is that servant leader who says, oh yeah, I don't know what you feel like, but I know what it feels like to be afraid. I know what it feels like to be outside of your comfort zone. And then for them to say, I'm not going to push you out there. But as Robin Lewis says, I'm right here with you. Right. And so I think that when we do that, that's an actionable step. Find
yes,
someone that you can identify. Hey, let me see. They seem nice. Let me open my mouth. Let me admit my fear after I'm aware of it. And then say, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing. Could you please help me, show me the way? Because I think you're pretty good at what you're doing. Go ahead, sir.
yes, sir. I agree with that 100%. I think learn whatever you can learn about it, but then another a very important step that I would say that we all need to take is to take the action, right? There is a saying, when you do the thing, you learn how to do the thing. One of the biggest fears that people have, I've heard this quote, I haven't stopped to check to make sure, but they said it's higher than even dying. And that is speaking in public, right? In public. So that apparently is a very big fear in our society, and I think one of the ways that you can overcome that is by speaking in public, right? And you're not going to be good the first time. Understand that and give yourself a break. Understand that you can do it again the next time, and you want to learn a little bit. Neil, I'm so tempted to refer to the toddler who's learning to walk.
There we go. Let's go, sir. Come on.
So that way of learning is how we learn, right? And what has happened to us, I think, as adults, is we allow the fear to get in the way of actually doing what it is that we did when we were toddlers. Everybody's done it. When we're learning to ride a bike, when we're learning to walk, it's so far back for me that you actually don't remember it. But I'm looking back and I'm looking at any toddler now and seeing them learn to walk. Is that you attempt it, you see everybody around you doing it, and you try to stand, right? And you're a little bit clumsy even in trying to stand. And it might take you a little while even to stand. But the cool thing that I think we have to take away from this is that the little infant is seeing people walking, they're recognizing, they're thinking that, hey, I can do this too. So they try again. And then, that process kind of takes place where they might fall, they might even hurt themselves. Sometimes they might get a little cut on their face or fall on their
Yes,
back
sir.
or whatever the case might be. But the key thing there is that they get back up and they try again and they get back up.
And so, Robin, on that, you're talking about it from the viewpoint of the infant and the toddler. What about we as parents and onlookers? How crazy is it that as adults, we'll see a kid, a child struggling, trying to learn this thing, and we are encouraging them after we see them fall, hurt themselves, scratch, look crazy, fall again. And then we cheer for them when they finally get it. But then we forget as adults, we'll see one of our colleagues, peers, adult family members doing something and falling. And instead of saying, do it until you are walking, we're saying, maybe you should stop, right? What if we saw our kids fall that first time and we said, okay, this walking thing is not for you. Let's just give up. So it's one thing as a child to try to walk, but because what are they hearing around them? Oh, you almost got it. One more time. But
Come
as
on, come
adults,
on, you can
come
do
on,
it.
hey, and you're looking at the faces of those around you, and there is this hope, right? There's this anticipation, there's this optimism. But when we as adults try to get out of our comfort zones and we look up, we see scowling faces. We hear voices like, who does he think he is to try to walk into this thing? Why would she believe that she's capable of doing this thing? And now all of these voices and everything that we're hearing, all the feedback is, you can't do it, just stay down. If you get up, you might hurt yourself. We never tell a kid, "Ooh, you might get a bruise on your bottom." Right? Come on. So I hear that from the two viewpoints, right? One, the toddler is looking around excited because they see excitement, but then as adults, we're looking at someone else attempting and failing, and we're saying, "Oh, you should quit, you should give up." And then as a social being, they're receiving that energy that we're giving them and saying, maybe they're right. Maybe I don't have this thing. Go ahead, sir.
No, I agree 100%. There's two things that I hear you saying. One is it validates what you were saying earlier on about being around people, right? I'm not a gym guy, and I decided just this was last year actually. It's very recent that I wanted to try that out. And
Mm-hmm.
what I did was a couple of friends that were getting together on a regular basis and going to the gym. I asked them, and they allowed me to come along with them, right? And so that's what they were. They were encouragers. They had been where I had been. And so there's two things there. One, you look out for the person, but then the other thing is being around people who are going to encourage you. I think that's so important what you're saying, Neil. And but the other part to add to that, and you alluded to it also, but I want to just highlight, and that's the idea that whether we're around people that are discouraging us or not, what we want to be careful is to not be the ones to discourage ourselves. I
Yes,
think what
sir.
has happened is we allow the fear of failure and the fear of what others might think and the fear of looking bad or sounding bad or messing up. We allow to get in the way of us even trying sometimes.
Yeah.
And yeah, the only way to overcome that is to be aware of it and the lie of it. Look at what Neil and I are saying to you today, that the only way we've really learned, if you think about this, I challenge you on this, our listeners, and that is the way that we learn is the same way the toddler learned to walk, is that we do it and then we learn. It's like the formula for success that we talked about, Neil, and it's about testing and failing and learning and improving and testing again. And so that's the only way that we are going to get better. And so we have to face that fear with that in mind. You are going to fail. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I would say that is an actionable thing. Recognize you are going to be uncomfortable. That's just the way that it is.
But in this time, I think that, and so part of it is we have not been told what Uncle Robin has just told us, right? All of our friends, social media, they're telling us, no, you don't have to be comfortable. Just take this shortcut, right? You don't have to do the uncomfortable. You don't have to do the unsexy thing because just create your own lane. You don't want to follow this script or this mandate, then just go create your own and just live this life of ease. And we know that easy is not great, right? And so this is something I think that we individually have to look at and consider. But just I want to just share a quick story for me, and then I'm going to ask you,
Yes.
Robin, if you have one, because I want people to understand that as the host, as the two having conversations with our family and friends here on this podcast, that we experience this too. And I am experiencing this right now as I've been working on the book and even going through that process and having someone in my corner like you that believes in me and that I can share this information with. And then you can give me some critiques, guide me a little bit, give your input and your feedback. And then me having to say, Robin, I am afraid of being critiqued. Right. And my personality is a big personality. I'm not hearing people think I don't care. Yes, I do. No one wants their feelings hurt. No one wants to be told that their baby is ugly. Right. And so as I'm putting this work together and have it at the publisher and getting covers back and in tier and getting ready for the launch, I'm still sitting here like, I've technically written it. I don't have to put it out there. And Robin's like, what are you talking about? Right? No, you have to get that out there. So that is what I'm experiencing, trying to go from that fear to freedom piece to make sure I get out of my comfort zone because it's so comfortable just to share my ideas with the 5 or 6 people that I know agree with me. Right. So I don't know if you have
I
something.
think it's
Go
such a
ahead, sir.
great point. What I would say to you, I would ask you, Neil, to share. So you are actually doing this. So this is a great example. So what have you done to sort of step into that out of that comfort zone then in regards to putting yourself out there with this book? Like what have you done?
So the very first thing that I did was I made my intentions clear and verbal to people who would hold me accountable. That was the very first thing. So you and I have been together what seems like forever. So when the idea came and you've been through 3 different books in my head, right? And so you saw from the time where it was supposed to be this, and then we morphed it and it looked decent, but it didn't have everything that it was supposed to have in there. And you're like, oh, okay, I agree. I like this. Would you think about this? So the first thing, I put it out there to people who would hold me accountable. And then every time I felt fear, I vocalized that fear to what I call my foundation, right? To you, my mom, a couple of friends, and hey, just so you all aware, if I don't tell you about this, just like the challenge that I had the past 30 days, hey, Robin, here's my goal. If I don't tell you, I know I'm not going to execute on it because I'm afraid of failing. And then giving people, requesting and asking for, hey, I need you to hold me accountable. I know you might not like confrontation, but it's better for me if you would say, Neil, did you do what you were supposed to? If not, why not? Based on the results, what are you going to do differently or how are we going to move forward? So vocalizing it to the people of my intentions, vocalizing my fears to the people, and then being open to feedback. And so that's where we are now. And so that's why you'll get a quick text from me, Robin, I'm not feeling this right here, but I'm letting you know so that you are aware. And then you're asking, Neil, how did it go? I'm like, I failed miserably. Think about it. I'm like, I failed miserably, but I tried it. And that's how our conversations go a lot of times. Because if I wouldn't have told you, if I wouldn't have told my foundation, I would have never tried it. And
Uh,
therefore, I wouldn't have learned in the process.
That's excellent. You know, so the accountability part that you're talking about there is, have people in your life. There's some people that you don't want to be telling those types of things, right? Like you talked about earlier, because you know what you're going to get. But
Yes,
but
sir.
have some trusted people in your sphere of influence that you can have them hold you accountable. I think that's a good thing. If we can have somebody help, I can benefit. I benefit from that with you. I benefit from that with others, and I think it's a great nugget that you are sharing there. And I know we don't have time to dive into this, but I'll say one area that I have. I tend to be an introverted person, right?
Stop. For real? Like in
Yeah,
real life, you are?
yes, sir. And so that's something that I have
Stop,
learned.
stop,
It's
stop,
something that
stop,
I have
Robin.
learned.
Robin, there is no way. I've seen you in your profession. I've seen you on the pickleball court. I've seen you at networking events. So you're telling me, and I'm being so serious right now, you're
Yeah.
telling me that you're having to muster up the strength and courage to do that.
Yeah, so it's not as much now, Neil, because I have developed that. That's the point. So that's an area you were asking, share an area. That's an area where, yes, and there are times where if I'm speaking in public, I'm a little bit as much as I've done it now. I've done it quite a few times now, right? But I'm still a little bit nervous initially, and until I get started, and so that doesn't come naturally, right? And what has happened, the point that I'm sharing there, and I know we don't have the time for it today. I'll just say this, that connecting with people is something that I learned. I made mistakes, and I was very intentional about making that happen. That's kind of allowed me to grow in that regard. But that's something that I was very uncomfortable with.
Wouldn't believe it, sir. From the time that I guess we connected from Dan Lohman, we connected on that subject matter on John Maxwell, Dr. Maxwell, that it was so like that was something that was similar for us. And so I blocked everything else out, right? I'm like, okay, that's my man, kindred spirit. And so from that, for the years we've been connected, I would have never guessed that.
A lot of people don't believe it when I say it. Yeah.
So I'm not by myself.
You're not by yourself. Yeah.
Dude, because I was
Interesting.
about to say,
I hope that actually encourages somebody today because it is the truth. It is the truth. I can tell you, there are times where I was at, sitting at the table and not saying anything because of insecurity and fear. And
dude,
so
you came to the book study that we had, brought one of your team members, and I was a table leader, but you're right there with me, arm in arm, leading this thing. So for you to say that, that's why I have this big smile on my face. I say, man, I learned something about my man today. I said, all right, that's pretty cool. But it has to be an encouragement to others, right? And then I think it's also a reminder that once we overcome that fear, what we unlock for not only ourselves but for others, right? So the perspective that I have, or the perception that I have of Robin is not the one that he has or what he knows about himself. And so many of us see you or see our friends and colleagues and think, man, they are rocking it. They're going all out. And on the other side, you're like, if I can just get through this next 20 minutes, boy, I know God is real. Right. And so, but you mentioned that it's also that leaving the comfort zone, and it's that necessary part of growth. Right.
yes, yes.
It wasn't enjoyable all the time. It was necessary. And the fact that you're willing to make that a decision and commitment speaks volumes, because you've made a difference in my life and the life of so many others. So thank you for being uncomfortable, sir.
Right on, sir. Thank you. One thing that I would say, Neil, I think we should say to our listeners is that there's fear that we need to pay attention to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we get fearful if we're at the edge of a cliff, and that fear is a healthy fear. So fear it can be very healthy. And so we're not suggesting to just jump off that cliff, right? There's a healthy fear, but just be aware that it's not just because the fear is there doesn't mean that you shouldn't do the thing. Yeah. Just be careful and thoughtful about what it is that you're trying to do and understand that the fear might be there. And then, like you said, be intentional about saying to yourself, well, I understand, yeah, I get it, but I'm doing this because I want to grow. I'm doing this because I want to go here. I'm doing this because I have this goal, or I'm doing this because I want to get better at that, and so on, right? So we have to process that fear. And there's sometimes where the fear is we need to take heed, right?
Don't be a fool. Sometimes you need to just stop and do nothing. Be like, nah,
Yes.
I'm going this way.
Yes.
Okay, you're absolutely correct.
Put that in before we end today. Yeah.
Okay, so in closing, Robin, what's one thing when it comes to comfort zone, getting out or moving past fear, moving into freedom to live the big life? I want you to think about what's something that you want to leave the audience with today. I'm going to go ahead and just interject here and say, here's what I'm going to encourage you all to do. No matter when you see the fear, no matter what obstacles you see, I want you to think of the freedom that's on the other side if you get out of your comfort zone. I do believe that there are big lives in front of each and every one of us. There is going to be this haze, this fog in front of us that is uncertainty, that is discomfort, that might even involve some pain that's going to require us to get through. But I believe that there's some big stuff if we are willing to find the people that are going to do life with us, if we'll allow them to hold us accountable, and then if we will heed wise counsel. So that's what I have when it comes to comfort zones, fear, freedom. What do you have for us in closing, Mr. Robin Lewis?
That's wonderful, sir. There's a quote. I don't remember the exact quote, but everything worthwhile is on the other side of fear. That's what I would leave our listeners with. So recognize if you're moving ahead, you're going to have to move through fear.
Good stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, Robin Lewis, Neil Oates Jr., we appreciate you all hanging out here with us. As always, we want to hear your thoughts, so make sure you leave a comment on whatever platform that you're listening to. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Big Life Podcast, as we are here to add value to you. But then most importantly, share this episode, share this show with someone that you love, care about, someone that might be experiencing fear that has freedom in their future. They will thank you. We thank you in advance for your actions. And we want to remind you, as we always do, that we love you, God loves you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And until the next time you see us or we see you, we're right there with you. Bye.